Hello everyone. We're going to start a new chapter on systems of equations and inequalities. So, let's go over some vocabulary that we're going to use. First off, what is a system of equations? A system of equations is just a set of equations that we deal with all at once, together. We're going to be dealing with linear equations. Those are equations with an x term. For example, 4x plus 1 is equal to y is a linear equation because it graphs as a straight line and the x term is to the power of 1. X to the power of 1 is x. And our second variable y is also to the power of 1. Now, if we want to solve for both x and y, we need at least two linear equations. The solution to a system of equations, the x, y values that we find when we solve for these two equations, can also be thought of as the point on the graph where, if we graph these two equations as lines, they'll look something like this. If we graph them as lines, the solution is the point where the two lines meet. So the xy value here is the solution to our system. Another key word is independent. We say equations are independent if they describe different lines. For example, x is equal to y and 2x is equal to 2y, these two equations are not independent because really they both describe the same line, this one. If we divide the second equation by 2, we get x is equal to y, the first equation. So if one equation is a multiple of the other, then they are not independent. And when we're thinking about independence, we also have to think about whether equations are consistent. We say they're consistent if our system of equations has at least one solution. So, on the same graph, if we had another line different than the first one but perfectly parallel to it, our two lines would never meet because they just keep extending to infinity perfectly parallel. They have no solution. This system has no solutions because the two lines never meet. So these equations are not consistent. So just to review, equations are independent if they describe different lines and consistent if there's at least one solution. Now, let's think about inequalities. Solving inequalities is very much like solving equations, except you have to pay attention to the sign. The sign can be less than. This is x is less than 2. Less than or equal to. X is less than or equal to 2. Greater than. X is greater than 2, and greater than or equal to. X is greater than or equal to 2. These are the four possible signs. To solve this, we want to rearrange the terms so that x is by itself on one side. For example, over here, we could subtract 1 from both sides to have x is greater than 4. So here, instead of getting a specific value for x, we get a range of values. This means x can be 5, 6, 100, 1,000, anything greater than 4. So to review, an inequality is like an equation, except we get a range of answers instead of a single answer, and we have to be a little more careful about the sign when doing operations, which we'll learn later. Independent equations describe different lines, and consistent equations have at least one solution.